Now, as Kermit said, talking of toys, it's not easy being green. And there are warnings that the latest greener petrol that could be rolled out across the UK can actually increase harmful emissions and make our cars less efficient. E10 petrol, as it's called, has been developed to help meet new EU environmental regulations. It contains 10% of bioethanol, which is around double the amount in our unleaded at the moment. Well, Emma Butcher is What Cars consumer editor, and they've been testing this fuel. How does the new E10 petrol compare with what we use now, Emma?
Hi Peter, well it's not great news. So what we did was we tested pure petrol, which is called E0, against E10, and we found an average fuel consumption increase of 8.4%, which equates to around about an average of £170 a year for the motorist.
Now, what do these new EU regulations actually call for?
Well, basically, the result of European legislation is the Renewable Energy Directive, which requires that by 2020, 10% of energy in road transport must be from renewable sources. Now, ethanol is such a renewable source. It's produced from crops. It's great because it absorbs, the crops absorb CO2 while they're growing. Ethanol is also cleaner burning, so good news in that respect. However, ethanol is 30% less energy efficient than petrol, which obviously has an impact on your fuel efficiency.
So, I mean, you've done some testing, haven't you? And how much less
I'm sorry, I've lost you.
How much? Can you hear me?
Sorry, no.
We've lost Emma.
Oh, you're back.
Oh, right. I was just going to ask you how much less efficient were the cars you tested when they were using E10 petrol?
Well, we tested 4 different cars with different engines, so three-cylinder turbo through to a hybrid car, all sorts of different engines, and on average fuel consumption increased by 8.4%, but the smallest and least powered engine that we tested, it was as much as 11.5% less efficient.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. That's Emma Butcher of What Car. Well, the Government Transport Minister, Baroness Kramer, has said any decision to supply E10 is very much a commercial decision of fuel suppliers, and current regulations certainly do not require them to do this. We're not aware of plans for its introduction in the immediate future. Well, Brian Maddison is chairman of the Petrol Retailers Association, which represents independent fuel retailers and forecourt operators throughout the UK and Northern Ireland. Brian, what are your thoughts on E10?
Well, it's good to hear the Minister saying that this is not being pushed through by government, because actually if the performance of the petrol engines does deteriorate, the government would pick up yet more duty and VAT. So that's good news, and I think it's good news too that, as far as we can tell, the oil companies and suppliers are not pushing through this E10 grade, because, as Emma has said, there are some downsides to it, and not least for many of our petrol retailers who live and work in the country. These are retailers often with just 2 tanks, 2 pumps, 2 grades, petrol, diesel. And if we were to move to E10, they could be severely disadvantaged by the fact that most of the vehicles in those rural communities tend to be the older vehicles which can't take E10.
Can anything be done, do you think, to make E10 better?
One would like to see it, but I think this also brings into the whole question, and it's a little bit like the discussion going on at the moment on climate change, biofuels. Is it actually preventing food being raised on land to give to starving people all around the world? Is this the best use of that land? And that's the sort of discussion which is going on at a higher level in the EU, and they seem to be starting to backtrack a little. So I think the whole question of the relevance of biofuels going forward is going to be examined closely.
Brian Maddison, thanks very much for joining us.